Swapping Scales for Suave, Chapter 4. Spike dragged his hose slowly across the dark ground of Ponyville, his sweat-stained mane falling across his face.
Why are you so out of shape? This is ridiculous.
Spike muttered through gasps of air.
I am not,
Rarity claimed, only to frown when she gazed down at her body's matted fur and now thoroughly ruined mane.
Okay, so I might have been skipping my usual running routine lately, but it's not that bad.
Rarity, you are winded after walking halfway across town.
Spike exclaimed. The dragon sighed.
I'm sorry, dear. I really did mean to keep jogging and avoid my nightly bowls of ice cream, but I'm just so exhausted after a long day.
I get it.
Spike murmured.
You do know that if we get stuck like this, I will make sure that you stick to your routine one way or another.
Rarity chuckled as she plodded along on all fours next to her partner.
And maybe I'll decide to fatten you up back to your old portly self.
The unicorn blushed furiously.
You wouldn't dare.
He shrieked.
Relax, darling, I would never.
Rarity replied softly. Spike grumbled and awkwardly pushed his long mane out of his face.
Your hormones suck, you know.
The need for drama is my blood, darling.
Rarity exclaimed. Spike chuckled as they continued to plod down the dark, empty streets of Ponyville. All around them, the usually bustling town were all asleep, their homes dark and seemingly empty. Despite the lateness of the evening, neither creature felt unnerved by the dark town, as they both had long since grown used to it. Lit only by the sparse streetlights spaced every block or so, the pair relied upon the bright moon more than the artificial lighting the town had provided. Though quiet, the street wasn't silence, as in the distance crickets could be heard, as well as the occasional rustle of leaves, neither of which bothered them. For they knew well the difference between the sounds a raccoon made while on the prowl for garbage and that produced by a roaming coyote. In the quiet that followed the pair, they silently ruminated over the strange turn of events that had just occurred to them. Neither was happy about the change, but they were also no strangers to magical accidents, ancient curses, and random shenanigans. They were Ponyvillians after all. It merely came with territory to accept catastrophe and disaster in stride. Plus, they had gone through this particular song and dance of getting cursed more than a few times in the past, and they were confident it wouldn't last much longer. After all, they weren't doing the cliche thing like trying to hide the change or pretending like it wasn't happening to them. Though both creatures silently admitted that it would have been nice if no one found out about the switch, they weren't dumb enough to think that they could handle it on their own. After all, they had wonderful friends like Twilight Sparkle to help them out. Twilight was a mare who had become Princess Celestia's protege at an unheard-of young age, after unleashing more magic than most adult unicorn mares were capable of harnessing over an entire lifetime. She was the pony who had brought the elements of harmony together and led them to battle against Nightmare Moon. After emerging from a fight that they shouldn't have won, Twilight continued to defeat many more of Equestria's enemies. And that was without even mentioning all the schooling that she had gone through, the research papers that she had published, or the magical breakthroughs that she had been responsible for. All in all, she was perhaps the best pony to have in your corner when dealing with some sort of magical ailment, save for maybe Celestia herself, though even then, it was a close toss-up between the two of them. The familiar tree library grew closer, and it wasn't long before the pair reached Twilight's humble abode. Spike reached for the door, only to be stopped by Rarity, who grabbed his wrist.
Wait a second.
Rarity whispered.
We should talk about what we're gonna say before going in there.
Why would...
Spike sighed.
Right. Wouldn't want to startle her too bad.
Exactly.
Rarity agreed, releasing the unicorn's hoof and taking a step back.
She may have relaxed significantly over the years, but Twilight still has a bit of a habit of overreacting.
True. So, how do you want to do this?
Spike inquired. Rarity hummed.
I think I should do the talking. I'll warn her, but quickly tell her what the problem is.
Give her no time to worry before giving her a problem to solve, thus occupying her mind. Good thinking.
Spike stated.
Exactly my thought process.
Rarity stated, smiling slightly.
Ready?
Ready.
Spike replied. Rarity carefully pulled open the door and stepped inside.
Twilight, are you there, darling? We need to talk.
The pair only made it a single step inside before turning towards the couch, where they heard a muffled yelp of surprise, followed by the thump of a falling pony.
Ow, 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 I hit my horn.
Cursed the familiar voice of Twilight Sparkle.
You're lucky, Sparkle. You didn't almost get your tongue bitten off.
Remarked Trixie, who sat up on the couch and glanced over to the newcomers.
I know it's Ponyville, but you could have at least knocked.
Twilight popped up a second later, the mare's eyes wide as she stared from Rarity to Spike.
You weren't supposed to be back until tomorrow!
She shrieked.
Well, you see, there was...
Spike began, only to be cut off by Rarity, who all but leapt over to the couch. The dragon grabbed Twilight Sparkle by the shoulders and hefted her off the ground, forcing their noses to meet.
Tell me everything!
Demanded Rarity.
What?
Twilight murmured. Trixie pulled a cigarette out of somewhere and casually ignited the end before puffing on it.
I think he's asking about us.
Trixie inferred.
How long have you been together? Where did you meet? Are you special some pony set? Can I make you the dresses for your wedding?
Rarity demanded, her words exiting her mouth so fast that even Pinkie Pie would have been jealous.
What?
Twilight muttered in disbelief, her back legs dangling off the floor. Trixie sighed.
We aren't. We met at one of my shows, and like I said, we aren't. And maybe, if we give Trixie a deal on a good rental...
You aren't together? Oh my goodness.
Rarity shrieked, spinning Twilight around.
This is exactly like this absolutely wonderful book that I've been reading titled The Notebook. Do come to me if you ever have any questions about love.
What is happening?
Twilight murmured, her eyeballs rolling loosely inside of her skull. Spike sighed and ran a hoof down his face.
I really should have done the talking. The great and powerful Trixie will be in our wagon. Good luck dealing with whatever this is.
Trixie remarked flippantly, before trotting past Spike and walking outside.
Could you put me down, please?
Twilight asked, flailing her hind legs in emphasis. Rarity blinked.
Oh, right. Sorry, darling. I'm afraid I got carried away.
It's okay, Spike, but why do you sound like Rarity?
Twilight asked after being placed on her own 4 hooves once more.
That's because she is Rarity,
Declared Spike.
Spike! I thought we agreed to warn her before we said that.
Rarity hissed, and the unicorn shrugged.
Well, the cat was already out of the bag. Wait, you two got turned into one another?
Twilight asked, cocking her head.
How's that even possible? Cursed magical rings.
Spike deadpanned, pointing to his horn in emphasis. Twilight sighed.
Well, I suppose that's a relief. I was already preparing this tall speech for Discord about how it's irresponsible to make people switch bodies against their will. I'd file that one away for later because after he gets back from vacation and learns of this, he may get some ideas.
Spike added.
This is gonna be a whole thing, isn't it?
Twilight whined.
It may, but that's not important right now.
Rarity exclaimed, waving a fist in the air.
What we must know is how you and Trixie became entangled with one another.
We aren't...
Twilight paused.
But that's a good way of putting it, but it's a long story and your guys' thing is much more important.
But Twilight...
Rarity complained.
We can tease Twilight about her dating life later. We have bigger problems right now, dear.
Spike declared. Rarity sighed and fell back down to all fours.
I suppose you're right.
Okay, so let's start from the top. Tell me everything you know about this curse.
Twilight began, the unicorn settling into an armchair. Spike sighed and sat across from the other pony, setting his puzzle box on the table.
Well, it all began on a dark and stormy night not even a month ago.
I can only imagine it must be a fun and a very embarrassing time to explain that whole story. But hey, you gotta do what you gotta do in order to get things back to normal. Now let's get on to our unique donators. Top donators: TacoCat598, Peter Coulthard, J Tinman, Darkside, Gauntlet, and Only One Thing. Zar630, Strix, Rayden, Narwhals, Black Moonheart, Drake Lovedragon, Pastel Skies, Austin Roland, Crazy Killer 557, Stu Hex, Dospo, Madman Stan, Delta Omega, Jack Hadge, Runescythe 9852, Leslie Prickett, Hunter Norman, Stephen Bingham, Line God 12, Zoff, and many more superior people. Thank you all very much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.